Seattle, Washington, November rain. It had been raining for 3 days straight. The kind of rain that kept on pouring down like a gloomy sigh from the city. Danny Tran, a senior in architecture, had just pulled his suitcase with a tattered handle to the front door of a mossy apartment building nestled in the middle of a winding slope in the suburbs. The building, called the Lambert, dates from the 1920s. It was old, cracked, and cheap. That appealed to Danny. As a Vietnamese international student, he needed a place that was affordable, not too far from school, and with as few people as possible. The building manager was an old black man named Clifford, with a beard as white as salt and a voice as hoarse as sand. He didn't say much, just gave him the key and a warning. You're the first person to rent room 309 in almost 2 years. Everything's been cleaned, the water and electricity are fine. But remember, Clifford paused, looking Danny straight in the eye. Don't use the main bathroom. Use the small one in the hallway. Understand? Danny frowned. Why can't I use it? I paid for the whole apartment. Clifford stuffed the key into his hand, muttering, Just listen, otherwise suffer. The air was heavy. A musty smell filled Danny's nostrils, as if the whole building was rotting from the inside. He nodded. Think it was probably a broken pipe or a dead rat. Apartment 309 was small but quiet. The floor tiles were chipped. The windows opened onto a dark alley. The kitchen was rickety, as if it would collapse at the slightest touch. But to Danny, it was better than many places he had lived. Above all, it had the one thing he needed most, solitude. As he moved in, Danny noticed something strange. The master bathroom, which was right next to the bedroom, had a double lock, a regular padlock, and a rusty chain wrapped around the doorknob. Under the door, the pungent smell of old detergent and mold lingered, like diluted blood. The first night, Danny lay in bed, listening to the rain tapping steadily against the window. No car horns, no voices, just the hum of the city and another sound. At first it was very small, like a drip. Drip, drip, drip. He thought maybe water was leaking from the ceiling. But the sound wasn't coming from the ceiling, but from the bathroom door. Danny listened. The dripping stopped. A cold breath blew across the back of his neck, as if someone was breathing softly behind him. He jumped up and turned. Nothing, just the same old room. Still the dim yellow light from a hanging ceiling bulb. The next day, Danny met an old Asian woman on the ground floor. She was in her 70s, small in stature, wearing a worn blue wool coat. When she heard Danny speak in room 309, she was stunned and then said in a Vietnamese English accent, Son, don't open that bathroom door. Something's not right in there. Danny asked again, but she shook her head, her eyes looking far away. I just know that the people who were there before, they are no longer normal. Second night, Danny heard the dripping again, but this time accompanied by something like scraping on wood. S-C-R-R-T, S-C-R-R-T-D. He walked softly to the bathroom door. He bent down. There was a dim light shining under the door, a white light like fluorescent lights. He breathed heavily, eyes fixed on the door. His heart was pounding in his chest. A crazy thought crossed his mind. Is someone in there? The next morning, Danny could barely concentrate in class. Despite 2 cups of coffee, his head felt heavy, as if someone had been sitting on his chest all night. In the back of his mind, he could still hear dripping and scratching on wood. When he got home, the 3rd floor hallway was completely silent. The ceiling lights flickered, the pale light reflecting off the peeling walls. Danny stopped in front of room 309. The bathroom doorknob was still chained, the iron lock rusty. But strangely, the chain seemed looser than yesterday. One night, Danny bumped into another neighbor, an American guy named Kyle. Kyle was tall, had a beard, wore Beats headphones, and a faded hoodie. When he learned that Danny was renting room 309, Kyle paused for a moment, then let out a soft whistle. 309? Damn, you got guts. What? Danny asked. Haven't you heard? Someone went crazy there. Not the insomnia kind that scratches nails for 6 hours and then ate them kind. Danny laughed, thinking Kyle was joking, but Kyle didn't laugh back. The police were once called because the previous tenant kept screaming, "Get out of the mirror," over and over in the middle of the night. And then what? Nobody knows. He's missing. Gone. The police broke down the door. No one found. Just a cracked mirror and dried blood on the sink. Danny swallowed. A chill began to creep up his spine. That night, Danny tried the door to the spare bathroom off the hallway. It was tiny, musty, and dark. It seemed like no one in the building used it. The water was weak and the sink was cracked. Meanwhile, the main bathroom, in 309, was still there like a secret door, whispering something every night. And sure enough, that night, the whispering began. At first, Danny thought he had misheard, but when he turned off the lights and closed his eyes, the sound became clearer. Danny. The call was long like the breath of someone who had just choked on water. He sat up, turned on the light, and looked around. There was no one, just the old, empty room with a locked bathroom door lying still in the darkness. Danny pressed his ear to the bathroom door. Silence. But as soon as he left, splash, the clear sound of a small drop of water falling onto a porcelain surface. The next day, Danny returned to the old Asian woman on the ground floor. She was feeding pigeons on the porch, her face turned toward the falling rain. "Do you know what happened in room 309? Danny asked. She was silent. After a long while, she replied, "People died there, and not just normal deaths." Why didn't anyone say anything? Because no one believed them, and no one lived long enough to tell. Who was that person? She turned back to Danny. Her eyes were opaque but piercing. Her name was Annabelle, Asian like you, beautiful, young, but she was tricked, betrayed. She locked herself in that bathroom for 3 days and then killed herself. Danny shivered. Have you met her? Not seeing with my eyes, but hearing. Every night, I hear her crying from that room. That night, it rained again. Danny lay in bed, the light from the street lamps filtering through the curtains. He turned on some white music, trying to lull himself to sleep. But the whispering came back, clearer this time. Danny, open the door. He got up and walked out of the bedroom. The whole apartment was silent. The scratching started again, but this time it wasn't a soft scratch. It was a deep scratch into the wood. Danny took out his flashlight and shined it into the crack of the bathroom door. Something was moving in the mirror. He stepped back. His heart pounded. Suddenly, the power went out. Smack! A sound like a light bulb breaking in the bathroom. The whole apartment was plunged into absolute darkness. Danny turned on the flashlight from his phone. Room 309 was still dark. The wall clock stood still at 3:12 a.m. Everything was still, except for the eerie murmuring sound coming from the locked bathroom. He approached slowly. A thin line of liquid oozed from beneath the crack in the door, black, oily. Danny reached out and touched it, cold and sticky like old blood. Suddenly, a voice rang out from inside. Knock, 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 like someone knocked their head on the mirror 3 times. The next morning, Danny woke up with bloodshot eyes. He dreamed he was standing in that bathroom. The mirror was steamy. Something was crawling behind him, slowly, crawling across the ceiling like a giant spider. When he turned around, he saw only himself, but with a distorted, melted face. He looked into the real mirror in the bedroom and swore something was misting on the glass before he touched it. On Monday, Danny skipped school. He locked himself in his room to watch the bathroom. At 2 a.m., the water started running, even though the faucet was shut off. He placed a phone to secretly film the door in the dark. The next morning, when he watched the video again, he was stunned. At 2 hours, 13 minutes, and 41 seconds, the chain tightens itself, and in the right corner of the screen, for a moment, a pale female hand appears, with sharp, wet nails lightly touching the mirror from the inside. Danny panicked and brought the video down to see manager Clifford. After watching it, Clifford was silent, took off his old glasses, and looked straight into Danny's eyes. "I told you, didn't I? Don't open that door." Danny almost shouted, "What's in it? I have a right to know." Clifford sighed. "I opened that door only once many years ago. It was rented by a man named Miles. One night, he broke the lock and walked in. From that moment on, he was no longer himself. Every night, he looked in the mirror and muttered in a language no one understood. Then he gouged out his own eyes. When the police arrived, the room was clean. No blood, no traces, just a cracked mirror and a sentence written in something black as tar. Let me out." Saturday night, Danny tried to leave the apartment and go back to his dorm, but when he stepped out into the hallway, the elevator was stuck. The stairs were dark, as if the light bulbs had been ripped out. Back in his room, he found the bathroom door wide open, the chain cut, the padlock lying on the floor. The air from inside was cold as a freezer. Steam clouded the mirrors. On the mirror, a new line of text appeared. "You saw me. Now it's my turn to see you." Danny slammed the door shut, locking it with the chair and table. But that night, the mirror in his bedroom began to fog up from the inside. He wiped it away. Behind him, reflected in the mirror, was the silhouette of a woman in a white dress. Long hair covered her face, standing less than half a meter behind him. Danny turned around, and 01. Danny didn't sleep. He sat against the wall, hugging his pillow, staring at the bedroom mirror. Ever since the bathroom door had been left open, every mirror in the apartment had been acting up. They fogged up, they showed handprints, and most importantly, they reflected things that weren't there. The next morning, he took out his phone and took a picture of himself in the mirror, and was shocked to see in the photo the woman's face stuck close to his back, her dark eyes sunken like empty eye sockets. Danny went to the public library and looked at the records of 1158 Monroe Avenue. The building, built in 1911, had once been the nurses' quarters of the nearby hospital. In one of the old files, he found a vague mention of a case. 1953, Nurse A. Nguyen died on the spot, suspected of drowning. Her body was found submerged in a bathtub filled with blood and broken glass. Unusual circumstances. Motive unknown. Case closed for lack of evidence. Danny knew that name, Annabelle Nguyen. Back in the apartment, Danny tried an experiment. He took a marker and drew a small cross on the bedroom mirror. Then he covered it with a cloth. The next morning, he pulled the handkerchief back. The cross was gone. In its place were scrawled words in something dark and viscous, like dry blood ink. The mirror does not reflect. It remembers. Danny panicked. He took a hammer and smashed the mirror. But when I came back a few minutes later, the mirror was still there, intact as if it had never been broken. One night, Danny dreamed that he was standing in front of a forbidden bathroom mirror. He reached out to touch the mirror, and his hand disappeared inside. Behind the mirror was a room identical to 309, but darker, distorted. Everything seemed to be rotting. And in the middle of that room was Annabelle, wearing an old nurse's blouse, her wet hair hanging down, standing there looking at him. As he screamed and pulled his hand away, the mirror melted like hot plastic. He woke up, his heart pounding. His hands were wet, even though he hadn't touched anything all night. The next morning, Danny saw fingernail marks carved deep into the wall opposite the mirror. There was a message carved in fingernails. "Get in, only then you'll understand." From that day on, he encountered a recurring phenomenon. The mirror in the bathroom automatically fogs up when he walks in. The refrigerator mirror reflected a smiling face even though he was frowning. Every time he looks in the mirror, there's an extra shadow behind him. Danny couldn't sleep. He set up a camera to point directly at the mirror in the middle of the night. When he reviewed it, the frame shook slightly at 2:59 a.m. Then a woman's hand emerged from the mirror, clawing at the air, searching, then retracting as if afraid of being discovered. Final angle. The mirror reflects Danny sleeping, but the face doesn't look like him. It smiles. By this time, Danny was having trouble sleeping. His hallucinations were getting worse. He saw Annabelle in elevators, on the street, in the bus mirrors. But every time he turned around, she was gone. No one else saw her. Danny's psychiatrist diagnosed him with dissociative disorder and acute stress. No one believed him. No one saw what he saw. Just him and the mirrors. 3:06 a.m. Danny stood in front of the mirror in bathroom 309, where it all began. I had prepared. The phone turns on video recording mode. A rope was wrapped around his waist, and the other end was tied to the table leg. In his hand, a small lighter, the only thing that made him feel alive. The mirror was still foggy, but this time Danny didn't wipe it. He wrote 3 words upside down on the mirror. "I see you." The mist cleared from within, revealing a familiar face. His own, but with black fluid dripping from his mouth and 2 empty eye sockets. Suddenly, a hand from the other side grabbed Danny's hand and pulled hard. The mirror was no longer solid. It was soft like cold liquid. Danny was sucked in, inside the mirror. The space was dark and absolutely silent, as if falling into nothingness. Danny woke up in the same room as 309, but all the colors were drained away, leaving only 2, ash gray and pitch black. The mirrors were shattered, hanging in the air like shards of glass. The walls were peeling, leaking black liquid like old blood. He looked around. Everything seemed to be slowly decomposing. "Danny," a whisper came from the wall. A woman's voice, muffled, strangled. He turned. On the ceiling, Annabelle was crawling upside down, eyes wide open, hair brushing the cracks. "Why am I here?" Danny shouted. Annabelle replied softly, her mouth barely moving. "Because you have seen me. Now you must understand me." She pointed a mirror in the middle of the room. Now a black, swirling door, sucking in the surrounding light. Danny steps in and falls. Memories not yours. He saw the old hospital in 1953. A long hallway, white stone floors, blood stains forming the shape of bare feet. In bathroom number 309 of the nurse's station, Annabelle was crying. Another nurse, Lily, knelt before her, her hands covered in blood. "I didn't want to do that, but he threatened to kill both me and you." Annabelle screamed. The mirror in front of her began to shake. It didn't reflect her. It seemed to be looking at her. Lily pushed Annabelle's head into the sink, holding it tight. Annabelle struggled, then froze. Blood flowed from the sink, soaked into the mirror, swallowed her soul. Danny stepped back, horrified. A voice echoed through the air. She didn't die because of the water. She died because no one saw her, only the mirror. And now it's your turn. Danny woke up. He was lying on the tile floor of bathroom 309. The clock read 3:33 a.m. The mirror door was closed. But from that day on, Every mirror he looked into reflected Annabelle's memories, hidden deaths, choked voices, and the eyes looked straight at him from the other side. Danny understood. He was not possessed. He was a witness. And one day, when he no longer remembered her, she would pull someone else through the mirror. After the night of passing through the mirror, Danny was never the same. He didn't eat, he didn't sleep, but he wasn't tired. His skin grew pale, his pulse slowed, and his eyes became unusually sensitive to light. What's more terrible, the mirror no longer reflects him. On Monday morning, Danny went to work as usual, but when he entered the company restroom, his co-worker Brian shouted, "You don't have a shadow." Danny looked down. Yes, he was standing there in the fluorescent light, but there were no shadows under his feet. When he looked in the mirror, he saw another version of himself. The other didn't move. It smiled, even though Danny was frowning. It raised a hand, even though Danny didn't move. That night, Danny returned to the apartment, packing to leave. But as he walked down the hallway with his box, the lights went out. Darkness fell like water. He heard footsteps behind him, soft but steady and close. When he turned back, no one was there, but the hallway camera then showed a man who looked exactly like Danny followed him. But facing the camera, Danny went to the house of an old priest, Father Collins, who had studied entities related to mirrors. After hearing the story, the priest only said one sentence: "If your soul was reflected there, then you are the reflection now. Your true being may have been withheld." Danny chuckled bitterly. Was he a reflection? A clone? And where was the real him? The swap gradually occurs. Danny doesn't remember how he got home. The phone has videos he never took. He received a text message from his own number. "I see. I understand. Now it's your turn to suffer." One night, Danny woke up in a bathtub. Cold water was up to his neck, mixed with a black liquid like waste oil. Dozens of small mirrors lined the walls, reflecting hundreds of different Dannys. But only one was moving, and it wasn't him. He scrambled out of the tub in a panic. But the apartment had changed. The windows were gone. There was no light outside. Everything was like a virtual version of the real world, a mirror image. Danny took out a small knife hidden in the drawer, looked in the mirror, and cut himself on the cheek. A drop of blood flowed down. But the mirror had no wound. The reflection was still smiling. "It's not you anymore." He decided to break the loop. Danny went through the building, smashing every mirror, the bathroom, the elevator, the hallway. But every time he turned around, the mirror was intact. Worse, he saw the reflection start acting a second before he did. He raised his hand. The reflection raised its hand first. He shouted. The reflection opened its mouth first. Who was the subject? On the last night, Danny wrote a letter. "If anyone reads this, stay away from room 309. What you see is not a ghost. It is a reflection you have forgotten. One day, you will look in the mirror and see yourself looking back, but you will no longer be you. I am a reflection, and I want to live." The next morning, the police found the apartment empty. There was no sign of forced entry. But on the bathroom mirror, there was a note. He traded places. No Danny, just a camera that captured a man walking out of the mirror and smiling. 3 weeks after Danny disappeared, room 309 was reopened. A new tenant, Lisa Grant, 26, a young nurse who had recently moved from Seattle, got the keys without knowing anything about the apartment's past. "The room was cleaned," said the receptionist. "Only the previous tenant did not pay. No trace left." First evening, Lisa felt something was off as soon as she opened the door. The smell of fresh paint was overpowered by a musty smell, as if rotten wood was buried in the walls. The bathroom mirror is too bright, reflecting light in an unnatural way. She thought she saw someone standing behind her in the mirror, but when she turned around, there was no one. Lisa's diary, day 3. I'm not sure if I'm just being sensitive, but I find that the bathroom mirror is always a little damp, even when I'm not showering. One time I dried it, then turned away. When I turned back, there was a wet handprint on the surface. Night 5, eyes in the mirror. Lisa walked past a mirror to turn off the light and found her eyes moving in the wrong direction. She looked straight ahead, but her reflection kept glancing to the left. When she stood still, the image in the mirror waved hello. She screamed, but when she called the neighbors, the mirror reflected normally. From that day on, she began to see Danny. In her dreams, in the shadows of people in the mirror, in the video camera she installed because she suspected someone had snuck into her room. Danny was there, but only in the mirror. Lisa finds a clue. She found a torn piece of paper hidden behind the mirror cabinet. If you see me in the mirror, don't return my gaze. If you find yourself acting before you think, walk away. Lisa began to record all the strange behavior. One morning, she brushed her teeth with her left hand. She is right-handed. She opened her phone and saw a text message to her ex-boyfriend that she never wrote. Search history includes things like, why does a reflection smile at the same time? Can mirrors learn human behavior? Night 10, sleepwalking. The camera shows Lisa getting out of bed at 2:47 a.m. She stands in front of the mirror, motionless for over 20 minutes. Then she begins to mumble something in a strange voice that barely sounds like her own. The next morning, Lisa remembered nothing, but on the mirror, there was a line printed in steam. You're almost ready. The psychological damage begins to spread. She didn't recognize her voice on the recording. Every time I look up after washing my face, my reflection is slightly out of sync with hers. The climax was when her shift mate at the hospital said, I saw you yesterday, but it wasn't you. That person looked like she was turned inside out. Lisa went to the expert. She met with Dr. Adler, a psychologist specializing in mirror illusions. After a session of observing the video from apartment 309, he simply said, reflection is not just an image. It is a memory of light. If it learns enough, it can recreate you even when you're no longer there. Night 14, the replacement. Lisa looked into the mirror, and for the first time, she saw nothing. No reflection. Just a surface as black as the bottom of a well. The lights flickered. A strong wind blew from the bathroom. Even though there were no windows, she turned and ran, but bumped into herself. Another Lisa stood in front of her, not blinking, not breathing, but smiling. The night was dark. Police found Lisa sitting motionless on the floor of bathroom 309, eyes wide open, not responding to light, sound, or movement, as if she was a frozen reflection. But in the mirror, one sees another Lisa walking away. After the Lisa incident, room 309 was sealed off. The press knew nothing, only writing. A young woman was found in a state of extreme dissociation. But one person has been quietly following along. Sam Whitaker, a freelance journalist who specializes in investigating forgotten phenomena. Sam joins in, having heard rumors of mysterious disappearances around this apartment. Sam began to piece together. Danny, missing without a trace. Lisa, behavior changes, then freezes. Before that, an old couple rented this room. The husband committed suicide in the bathroom, and the wife completely lost her memory. It all revolves around the bathroom mirror. Sam pretended to be a psychology student to get into room 309 to film a documentary. He was only allowed to stay for 3 hours under supervision. The mirror started calling. As soon as he entered, Sam's camera was interrupted by a glitch as it pointed towards a mirror. The angle was blurry, like a reflection was being filmed. He turned on the infrared light. On the screen appeared moving, figures behind the mirror, as if waiting to come out. Sam found that the bathroom floor door had been removed. He lifted it up, and underneath was a deep, dark recess, one that led no system listed on the building plans. He lowered the camera, turned on the flashlight, and saw countless pieces of broken mirror, arranged in a spiral. In the middle was a pair of eyes, open, real origin. Sam finds an old file in the building's owner's office. It dates back to 1948, when the building was a private mental institution. Room 309 was used to isolate patients who had mirror visions. One of them, Dr. Frederick Mahler, the founder of the camp, locked himself in there and wrote the last line in his diary. The mirror does not reflect us. It repeats itself to capture. I was wrong to think I was watching it. Now I know it always looks at us first. Sam is stuck. The surveillance camera captured Sam suddenly disappearing from the frame. But before that, a very quick frame flashed by, showing the two Sams standing next to each other. No one can tell which version is real. 6 months later, room 309 is for sale. The new owner is a quiet young man named Sam. When the cleaner asked if the mirror needed to be removed, he smiled. No need. It's a part of me. The first night, a knock came from the mirror. Knock, knock, knock. And someone's voice, just like Lisa's, whispered. Someone pull me out. I'm still here. I can still see you. The mirror never ends.